This video is brought to you with the support of TrueFire. Practice smart and play hard with TrueFire. Hi, this is Keith Williams. Welcome to 5-Watt World, where we're interested in helping you get the most music from the least gear. I am always interested in exploring iconic gear, and I'm fascinated by getting the most from each piece that we decide to spend our hard-earned money on these days. So if you've always wondered about the ins and outs of this utterly classic bit of kit, you're in the right place, because this is my video on the 5 things that make a Tweed Deluxe the ultimate 1-amp collection. If you like the style of video, be sure to subscribe. And to support what we do, grab a t-shirt, hoodie, or a 5-Watt World Barber Collaboration overdrive pedal. To become an even bigger part of 5-Watt World, sign up for the Friends of 5-Watt on Patreon. There's a friend level to suit any budget. And if you've always wanted to have your own YouTube channel but didn't know where to start, buy my YouTube Mastery for Musicians course. All the links are in the description. Number 1. A quick history. The Fender Tweed amp era runs from 1949 to 1960. But though the earliest Tweed Deluxe amps have their own unique charm, but everyone agrees that it was the move to the 5E3 circuit in 1955 when it came into its own. It was built in a small box cab for less than a year before moving to the more common classic size. The February 57 Fender price list had the Deluxe at $129.50, roughly equivalent to $1,480 in 2025. For many, a vintage 5E3 Deluxe is a holy grail amplifier, and the vintage prices reflect that. Even this well-loved 58 is listed at just under $9,000. For this reason, many folks turn to current reissues. Or, if you're even a little bit handy with a soldering iron, a 5E3 kit is probably within reach from the folks at Mojotone. Additionally, the folks at Mojotone have been selling fully assembled versions of their kits, and they indulged me when I asked for one in custom white Tolex and the later silver Fender grill cloth. It matches the Princeton kit they built for me as well. David Barber has dubbed this particular 5E3 the Tolex Deluxe. That's the amp you'll hear in the video. But back to the quick history. By 57, the amp design was running at higher voltages than the earlier versions, giving it more headroom and more total gain. It uses 12 AY7 and 12 AX7 preamp tubes running into a cleaner cathodine phase inverter. But the cathodine phase inverter also has a unique snarl when the amp is turned up. A pair of 6V6 power tubes and a 5Y3 rectifier round out the tube complement. The construction of the amp has a lot to do with its performance. The finger joint pine cab is 16.7 inches high, 20 inches wide, and 9.5 inches deep. Holding the 12-inch speaker is a thin 1/4 inch pine or Baltic birch ply speaker baffle that is floating. Floating in that it is screwed to the cabinet at the top and the bottom, not glued in place. This allows the baffle to vibrate with the speaker more freely. You can see the gaps around the baffle in this pic of a 57 Harvard. Many people believe that this relatively thin and floating baffle contributes to both the efficiency or volume per wattage and to its ambience. It's worth noting that many modern kits and clones use a 3/8 inch baffle due to the belief that plywood in the 50s was stronger than modern ply. But the 5E3 has a larger output transformer than a Princeton, so it's likely generating closer to 15 watts compared to the Princeton's 12 watts. The larger speaker, different cabinet construction, and flatter frequency response all contribute to why a Tweed Deluxe can feel louder than a Princeton Reverb, which runs at about the same wattage. Number 2. Famous Tweed Deluxe tones. Leo Fender was all about clean tones. His gold standard was Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys. Fender's amp line was designed to have specific steps in volume, features, and price. If you needed more clean headroom than a Deluxe could give you, Leo would gladly sell you one of the larger amps, a Pro, a Super, or a Tremolux. But as players embraced the distortion generated by an electric guitar and amp, the Deluxe found a new life in the hands of many famous artists. You know the sound of a Tweed Deluxe, even if you didn't know that's what you were listening to at the time. Earliest tones include many recordings by jazz legends on the Blue Note label that were recorded at Rudy Van Gelder's studio. One of the 2 amps in the studio, Wes Montgomery, Kenny Burrell, and Grant Green, likely used it on occasion to record there. Keeping the volume knob on their guitars rolled way off so as not to push the front of the amp to breakup kept everything on the clean side. Elvis Presley's guitarist Scotty Moore used the Tweed Deluxe early before moving to a Ray Butts Echosonic on Mystery Train. Lap steel guitarist David Lindley, who is famous for playing on so many Jackson Browne records, built his ideal tone on a cranked Tweed Deluxe, later going to Howard Dumble looking for those tones at higher volume. Dumble first modified a Tweed Deluxe for Lindley and later built him Overdrive Special No. 8, which has a very similar tone circuit and was the amp Lindley used for lap steel parts on the seminal Running on Empty record. Larry Carlton set aside his Rivera modded Princeton and used a Tweed Deluxe on much of Steely Dan's The Royal Scam and Asia albums. His solos on Kid Charlemagne and Don't Take Me Alive were both recorded with his 335 straight into his cranked Tweed Deluxe. He tells a great story about using the amp in this classic Premier Guitar Rig Rundown from 2014.
Let's talk about your amps.
We'll start here with the Tweed. And I've talked about this before on my website. That's the amp that I used for the Steely Dan sessions. And I don't even remember why and how I brought the Tweed in, because I didn't use it on any other sessions. Only the Royal Scam, Asia, and Donald's Nightfly album.
Wow.
So yeah, I got that with my 335 on the back pickup was the Kid Charlemagne and Don't Take Me Alive.
And no effects. You just went
effects.
Straight in. How loud? Because it's, I mean, did it have it like cranked all the way open during that, or?
Well, I don't remember the exact setting, but obviously you play and you just keep moving it until it's starting to bark.
Yeah.
But not sounding too trashy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was just luck, man. I don't know how I ended up taking that one for the solos.
Yeah, that's great. So you just plugged your 335 into this.
Yes.
And recorded all those legendary.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think this is part of a cool story too. When Donald Fagen was doing the Nightfly, he flew me to New York to do some overdubs, and I took my 335 in a suitcase. I didn't take an amp. I thought, well, I'll rent an amp. And I got there, and we're visiting in the control room, and he said, oh, and where's your amp, man? I said, well, I didn't bring it. I thought we'd just rent one. They sent for my amp.
Really?
And on the Nightfly, it's that amp, my 335.
Don Felder's solo on Hotel California is a 59 burst Les Paul into a Tweed Deluxe. Much of Felder's playing on that entire album was done on his 5E3. Neil Young bought his Tweed Deluxe in the late 60s when he was with Buffalo Springfield, and in '69 he made it famous with his tune Cinnamon Girl. But for Neil's full-on Tweed Deluxe about to explode tones, look to his records with Crazy Horse from the late 70s. Rust Never Sleeps and the later Weld records show the power of a mic'd-up 5E3. Arc is a record released of feedback-driven intros and outros from the '91 Weld tour. Here Young wanders in a land of overdrive, feedback, and general bombast that isn't to be missed for any student of the Tweed Deluxe. Or, for a simpler moment, crank up Hey Hey My My and settle into 1979 for a 5-minute edge-of-the-end-of-the-world ride on the distortion generated by a Tweed Deluxe. Going into the 80s, a Tweed Deluxe was often part of Mike Campbell of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' tone formula. He often paired it with a non-reverb 60s Princeton in both the studio and on stage. And many, many more famous players creating famous musical moments contributing to the high prices for vintage units and the Fender Custom Shop 57 Tweed Deluxe today. I've been using TrueFire for years, so they were the perfect partner for 5-Watt World. Like a lot of guitar players, I'm interested in all kinds of music. TrueFire always has something to scratch the itch I have for learning more about guitar. To take full advantage of the variety, I've always subscribed to the All Access Pass, which lets me use everything in the TrueFire catalog. As a viewer of 5-Watt World, you get an exclusive 50% off discount on the All Access Pass. I've learned so much from TrueFire that I'm confident you can too. Sign up using the link in the description to support 5-Watt World and get some great lessons at the same time. Practice smart and play hard with TrueFire. I'd like to thank TrueFire for their support in making this section of the video. Number 3, the perfect living room amp. There might not be a lot of cleans on tap for stage volumes, but they have the perfect blend of clean and harmonics that come from the On Our Way to Dirt tones that are magical at living room and recording levels. At-home players can use the low input to get to the sweet spot at a lower volume level, but even then the volume knob is notoriously tweaky, coming on all at once. To get around that, I recommend using a clean boost pedal, giving you more gradual sweep of the volume. You do this by turning down the volume on the pedal below unity, bringing the signal down as it heads to the amplifier. I have a long history using my buddy David Barber's pedals, so I use David's tone press compressor to improve headroom and add a little sustain at low volume at the same time. And/or one of the 2 boost pedals we've designed together is great in this role as well. I'd use a Barber Plus, a very flexible clean boost, but also a Tweedy sounding overdrive that melds well with a 5E3's voice. Or I'd turn to this new version of the Barber Electronics Barb EQ pedal, which was designed to work with the Tweed amps that have a single tone control. A Tweed Deluxe can work particularly well with a pedal like the Barb EQ. A Barb EQ adds a treble and bass knob tone stack to an amp like a Tweed Deluxe with a single tone knob. There are 2 settings on the right toggle, one to provide the EQ of a Fender black panel and another to provide the EQ of a high-powered Tweed amplifier, the second of which I find works great with a Princeton, but that's another video. For years, the distributor of a prominent 5E3 clone pretty much sold the Barb EQ with every amp that was ordered. This new 5-watt World version gives you just a little bit more available mid-range bump on the 3-way toggle on the left side of the pedal. Now you're probably wondering why you couldn't just style this in with a Boss EQ7, and you might get there. But each type of EQ circuit has its own effect. When you turn a bass or treble knob, the phase can move around 5, 10, 45 degrees. Most EQs have a signature sound, some more, some less, but phase is a contributor to the signature. David has taken all the guesswork out of it by making sure that it's right there on the switch, giving you exact Fender tone stack and giving you an amp that Fender never offered, a black panel tone with a cathode bias and a floating baffle speaker. The perception of Tweeds being mid-forward comes from our bass line of the more scooped black panel amps. In fact, a Tweed Deluxe is the one amp that can reliably be a blank canvas that then melds well with a pedal like the Barb EQ. By using the Barb EQ on the black panel setting, it can become a better pedal platform amp. Having that overall tone curve and the added treble and bass control, you can further improve the way it's working with your pedals. Here, David's going to demo some of these sounds for us. First, he's playing the amp with no pedals. And here he's adding a tone press to add headroom and sustain. Then he's adding the Barb EQ to shift the amp to black panel style tones. Now you've got Tweed tones or Fender black panel tones from the 5E3. This helps make the 5E3 into a much better pedal platform amp. Of course, using the Barb EQ, you can now also tailor the treble and bass to help keep the amp in the sweet spot for the output of the guitar you're using as well. Number 4. It's actually perfect for modern gigging. All this newfound control can enhance the ability of a Tweed Deluxe to function as a great gigging amp. The debate rages about whether a Tweed Deluxe's, roughly 15 watts, is loud enough to gig with a drummer. The answer, of course, lies with the quality of your PA and how hard your drummer is hitting. To help answer this question, I often point to Julian Lodge, who gigged a Tweed Champ. These days, most venues are very strict about stage volumes, and 15 watts seems to be the current sweet spot. Even longtime Deluxe Reverb fan Zach Childs moved to a Princeton with a 12-inch speaker a couple of years ago, and he hasn't looked back. Here, the Tweed Deluxe with its stock 12-inch speaker baffle helps it compete like Zach's modded Princeton. The pedals outlined above can greatly enhance the gigability of a 5E3. Fender would often use a lower quality speaker to help delineate the amp's price point. Changing out the speaker for a more efficient model is a common way to further extend the working volume of a Tweed Deluxe. In Nashville, you'll often see a modern Jensen P12Q or a Celestian Blue doing just that. Folks will tell you that a vintage Tweed Deluxe amps are far from being loud enough for gigs, but this is often due to a speaker that was worn out decades ago. Nearly identical in size to a Princeton, a 5E3 is fully 8 pounds lighter at around 26 pounds. Wonderfully light for a full tube amp. I swapped out the speaker in mine for a Mojotone Neo British Blue, shaving off even more weight and bringing it closer to the featherweight Princeton Tone Master's 23 pounds. This difference in the weight is generally due to the solid pine cabinet in the Deluxe compared to the birch plywood of a Princeton, along with the absence of a reverb pan and the associated reverb transformer and additional tubes. And finally, to have even more control over the stage volume or room volume, while giving you more flexibility, I recommend using an interactive load box like the 2Notes Captor X. This provides both the ability to lower the volume coming from the amp and give you a direct out to send to the front of the house to mix into the PA, without the need of having a live mic on the amp on stage. And number 5, Dumble on a budget. Much about what we love about a cranked 50 or 100 watt Dumble can be found at mortal volumes in a Tweed Deluxe. I've read in interviews with folks that had Dumble build them an amp later in his career that Howard had a collection of vintage Tweed Deluxes, and he'd have the player plug into and play through each. Howard would then listen for the player to connect with a specific Deluxe, and with its unique H components. He'd then use that as a guide when building the player one of his modern amps. Along with the early breakup, the Deluxe circuit gives up wonderfully forgiving early compression that always feels good under the hands. Your notes are full and round. They have more natural sustain, all things we often chase with overdrive pedals but rarely find. A Tweed Deluxe turned up is perhaps one of the best teachers on using the volume knob on your guitar to find the variety of breakup possible. It would have been unheard of to turn your guitar all the way up in the 50s, and these amps are happiest when you treat them with a variety of input levels available from your volume knob. Besides the anecdote about Dumble using them for voicing, 2 of my absolute favorite players moved from using a Tweed Deluxe over to using Dumbles later in their careers. As I touched on earlier, both Larry Carlton and David Lindley, 2 very different but equally melodic soloists, embraced overdrive special style amps, but did some of their most memorable playing with cranked Deluxes. It's interesting to me that listeners often debate whether they're hearing Carlton play his 5E3 or a Dumble. Same with Lindley. Much of this is in the hands, but fully the rest of the magic is coming from that late 50s Fender Tweed Deluxe circuit. So who's your favorite Fender Tweed Deluxe player? Put it in the comments for everyone to enjoy. If you like this video, you probably enjoy my short history of the Fender Tweed Bassman. I need to thank Michael Westbrook for his permission to use playing clips of the 5E3 that he built from a kit. I need to thank David Barber for teaching us how to get more from our 5E3s using pedals. I need to thank Corey Hicks and Rhett Shull for their permission to use their playing examples for the video. If you want to know more, I mean way more, about how the circuit of a Tweed Deluxe works, I highly recommend Rob Robinette's webpage. All of these links are in the description. I want to thank everyone that stopped by the online store and grabbed some merch or a 5 Watt World Barber Electronics Collaboration overdrive pedal. You keep the channel going. In particular, I want to thank all my friends of 5 Watt on Patreon. It's the guitar community I've always wanted. You're all 5 Watt World. I just make the videos. If you like this style of video, be sure to subscribe. And if you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Thanks for hanging with me until the end. Until next time, I'm Keith Williams. Thanks for being a part of the 5 Watt World.